The alarm started at 6:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Captain Jiho was drinking his morning coffee on the observation deck of Aurora 7 when the sensors picked up something impossible. 500 ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were massive. The smallest vessel was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with strange metals that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. Within minutes, every space station, every satellite, every radio telescope on Earth was focused on the newcomers. Jiho set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. In 15 years of service, he had dealt with asteroid deflection, satellite repairs, and the occasional rogue mining operation. He had never trained for this. Nobody had. "Get me Admiral Hana," he said to his communications officer. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. Right now. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Hana was already awake. She had been watching the feeds for 20 minutes. Her gray hair was tied back in its usual tight bun. Her face showed no emotion, but her fingers drummed against the desk. A nervous habit she had never quite broken. "Tell me something good, Captain," she said when Jiho's face appeared on her screen. "I can't, Admiral. Our scans show weapons we don't understand. Energy signatures that make our fusion reactors look like candles. And they're heading straight for Earth." Hana nodded slowly. She had known this day might come. Humanity had been reaching for the stars for decades now. Eventually, someone was going to reach back. She had just hoped they would be friendly. "Assemble the defense fleet, all available ships to high orbit, and contact Ambassador Yuna. Tell her to prepare for first contact." The alien fleet entered Earth's orbit exactly 12 hours after they were first detected. They did not fire. They did not speak. They simply waited, their massive ships blocking out stars and casting shadows on the moon. Then the message came. It played on every screen on Earth, every television, every phone, every computer. The face that appeared was not human, but it was close enough to be disturbing. Gray skin, 3 eyes arranged in a triangle, a mouth that moved wrong when it spoke. The universal translator that came with the message was frighteningly advanced. "Greetings, humans of Terra. I am Commander Thalvex of the Velkar Empire. We have come to offer you a choice." The alien's 3 eyes seemed to look directly at each viewer. "The Velkar Empire spans 847 star systems. We have brought order to chaos, peace to conflict, and prosperity to countless worlds. We offer you the same opportunity." Then the images began. Worlds burning. Cities crumbling. Civilizations reduced to ash. The holographic displays showed planet after planet, each one destroyed in horrifying detail. Some had tried to fight. Some had surrendered immediately. In the end, all had joined the Empire or died. "You have 72 hours to decide," Thalvex continued. His mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "Choose wisely. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is laughable. Your ships are toys. We have destroyed civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than yours, but we are not without mercy. Surrender and you will live as servants of the Empire. Refuse, and Terra will become another lesson for the galaxy." The broadcast ended. For 10 seconds, the world was silent. Then the panic began. Ambassador Yuna stood in the emergency session of the United Earth Council. Representatives from every nation shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for war. Most simply looked terrified. Yuna was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but when she spoke, the room fell silent. "We need time. Time to evacuate cities. Time to prepare defenses. Time to find another option." "What other option?" someone shouted. "You saw what they did to those other worlds." "Then I will buy us time," Yuna said quietly. She smoothed down her blue diplomatic robes. "I will negotiate with them. Even if they refuse, it might give us hours, maybe days." Admiral Hana watched the council session from her command center. She knew Yuna was right. They needed time. But not for evacuation, not for conventional defenses. Those would be useless against the Velkar. She pulled out a secure communication device. Only 12 people in the world had the frequency. She pressed the button and waited. "Dr. Day here." The voice was tired, slightly annoyed at being interrupted. "Day, it's Hana. How deep are you right now?" 11 kilometers, why? "I need you to wake it up." There was a long pause. In the background, Hana could hear the deep groan of water pressure against reinforced steel. The Deep Ocean Research Facility was the most isolated place on Earth, buried in the darkest trenches of the Pacific Ocean. Hana, we talked about this, Dai said carefully. We don't know if we can control it. We don't even know if it will remember us. It's been asleep for millions of years. I know, but right now it's our only chance. Another pause. Then, I'll need authorization from the Security Council. You just got it. I'll send the codes. How long will it take? To wake it? Maybe 3 days. To get it to the surface? Maybe never. Hana, this thing is bigger than anything you can imagine. We've been studying it for 20 years and we still don't understand half of what it can do. Then you better start understanding fast. We have 72 hours. Hana ended the call and turned back to her screens. Captain Jiho and the crew of Aurora 7 were preparing their defense positions. Pathetic little weapons that would barely scratch the Velkar shields. But they would fight anyway because that was what humans did. Ambassador Yuna was already preparing her message to Commander Thalvex, requesting negotiations. She would be polite, diplomatic, humble. She would offer everything Earth had. And Thalvex would probably laugh. High above Earth, the Velkar fleet waited. 500 ships carrying enough firepower to crack a planet in half. They had done this 847 times before. They had perfected the art of conquest. They knew exactly how this would end. Deep below the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Day stood in front of a massive observation window. Beyond the reinforced glass was darkness, but in that darkness something ancient stirred. Seismic sensors showed movement for the first time in 2 decades. Temperature readings spiked. Electromagnetic fields flickered to life. Private Hyun, standing guard at the door, cleared his throat nervously. Doctor, what exactly are we waking up? Day didn't turn around. His reflection in the glass showed a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. Something that was here long before we were, Private. Something that has been sleeping and healing for millions of years. Something that humanity has been protecting without even knowing why. In the darkness beyond the window, a light began to glow. Faint at first, then brighter. Blue and green bioluminescence painting patterns across something massive. Something that defied measurement. And I think, Day whispered, it knows we're in trouble. The countdown had begun. 72 hours until the Velkar demanded their answer. 72 hours until Earth either surrendered or burned. But deep in the Pacific, something ancient opened its eyes for the first time in epochs. And it remembered why it had come to this small blue world so long ago. It remembered its purpose, it remembered its duty, and it was not pleased to be disturbed. The first 24 hours passed in chaos. Major cities around the world began evacuations, though everyone knew there was nowhere safe to go. If the Velkar decided to destroy Earth, no bunker would be deep enough, no mountain high enough to save anyone. Captain Jiho watched the organized panic from Aurora 7's command deck. Traffic jams stretched for hundreds of miles on every continent. Airports were overwhelmed. The rich fled to their private bunkers. The poor simply stayed home, resigned to their fate. Lieutenant Seok stood beside him, young and terrified. Captain, why are we still here? Seok asked. Shouldn't we evacuate too? Jiho shook his head. Where would we go? Besides, someone needs to man the station. If we're going to die, we might as well die doing our jobs. Seok looked down at his hands. He was 23 years old. He had joined the Defense Force because he dreamed of exploring the stars, of being part of humanity's great adventure into space. He had not signed up to be vaporized by aliens in the first month of his assignment. I wanted to see Mars someday, he said quietly. Maybe you still will. Jiho lied. He did not believe it, but lying seemed kinder than the truth. Down on Earth, Ambassador Yuna sat in a small communication room preparing for her meeting with Commander Thalvex. She had spent 6 hours researching every first contact scenario, every diplomatic protocol, every negotiation tactic humanity had ever developed. None of it seemed adequate. She wore her best formal robes. She had practiced her speech 100 times. She had prepared offerings of art, music, science, and culture. Everything Earth had to give. When Thalvex's face appeared on the screen, his 3 eyes studied her with something like amusement. Ambassador Yuna of Terra, you wish to negotiate? Yes, Commander. On behalf of all humanity, I come to discuss terms of peaceful cooperation between our species and your empire. Thalvex made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Peaceful cooperation? Little Ambassador, you misunderstand. We are not here to cooperate. We are here to accept your surrender. Yuna kept her face calm. Then perhaps we can discuss the terms of that surrender. We are willing to share our resources, our technology, our knowledge. We can be valuable allies to the Empire. Your resources are adequate but unremarkable. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your knowledge is primitive at best. Thalvex leaned forward. You have nothing we need except your obedience. Then why let us live at all? Yuna asked. Why not simply destroy us? Because slaves are useful. Because your bodies are adequate for labor. Because watching lesser species serve the Empire reminds others of their place. Thalvex's mouth curved into that wrong smile again. And because your suffering will be educational, we will broadcast your conquest across the galaxy. Other worlds will see what happens to those who resist, and they will surrender more quickly. Yuna felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was not a negotiation. This was humiliation, broadcast for the galaxy's entertainment. But she kept talking anyway, asking questions, making offers, buying time with every word. Thalvex allowed it because he enjoyed watching her hope drain away. In the Pacific Ocean, 11 kilometers below the surface, Dr. Day stood before a wall of monitors. Each screen showed different readings from the creature below. Heart rate, if you could call it that. Temperature, electromagnetic output, biochemical reactions, all of them were increasing. Commander Nari had arrived 12 hours ago with 3 submarine carriers. She was a solid woman with gray streaks in her black hair and hands that never stopped moving. She had commanded Earth's underwater fleet for 8 years, but she had never been briefed on what lay beneath the facility. Doctor, she said, staring at the sonar readings. That can't be right. This says there's something down there the size of a small continent. The sonar is working perfectly, Day replied. He typed commands into his console, adjusting sensors. What you're seeing is accurate. That's impossible. Nothing biological can be that large. Commander, 20 years ago we discovered that everything we thought we knew about biology was wrong. Day pulled up a holographic display. Look at these tissue samples. This is living metal. Organic matter that can shift between states, that can conduct electricity, that can regenerate from almost any damage. This creature isn't just biological. It's something else entirely. Nari studied the hologram, her expression unreadable. And you think this thing will help us fight the Velkar? I think it's our only chance. 20 years ago, when we first found it, it was wounded. Massive trauma across its entire body, like it had been in a war. We've been taking care of it since then. Feeding it, protecting it, trying to understand it. Maybe it will remember that. And maybe it will just destroy us all the moment it wakes up, Nari said flatly. Day nodded. That's possible too. Private Hyun stood at his post near the observation window, trying not to look at the darkness outside. Every few minutes another pulse of light would flash in the depths. Blue, then green, then colors he did not have names for. Each pulse was brighter than the last. His communication device beeped. It was his mother calling from Seoul. Hyun, are you safe? They're saying we should evacuate, but the roads are blocked. I don't know what to do. Mom, stay home. Lock the doors. Keep the radio on. I can't tell you more, but please trust me. Stay home. He could hear his younger sister crying in the background. His mother's voice was shaking. Hyun, what's going to happen to us? I don't know, Mom, but I'm going to do everything I can. I promise. He ended the call before she could hear his voice break. 48 hours into the countdown, the Velkar began their demonstrations. One of their smaller ships moved to an uninhabited asteroid in the belt and fired a single weapon. The asteroid, 2 kilometers across, simply ceased to exist. Not shattered. Not broken apart. Just gone, converted to elementary particles in a flash of light. The message was clear. This is what will happen to your cities. This is what will happen to your children. Surrender or die. Admiral Hana watched the demonstration from her command center. Around her, officers worked frantically, coordinating defenses that everyone knew were useless. Earth's most powerful weapons could barely scratch the Velkar shields. Their energy output made humanity's fusion reactors look like campfires. But Hana was not watching the tactical displays. She was watching the feed from the deep ocean facility. Day, give me good news, she said into her secure line. It's waking up faster than expected. The biochemical reactions are accelerating. But Hana, we're seeing some strange readings. Energy signatures we don't understand. Spatial distortions around the facility. I think when this thing fully wakes up, reality itself might bend a little. Can you communicate with it? We're trying. We've been broadcasting the same mathematical patterns we used 20 years ago when we first made contact. Simple concepts. Prime numbers. Geometric shapes. Signs of intelligence and peace. Is it responding? Yes, but not with math. It's responding with emotions. We're picking up telepathic resonance, fear, anger, confusion, and something else. Something like recognition. Recognition? It knows something is wrong. It can sense the Velkar ships in orbit, and I think it remembers why it came to Earth in the first place. Why did it come to Earth? Hannah asked. Day was quiet for a moment. We have theories. Based on the genetic markers in its cells, we think it's billions of years old. We think it's part of a species that seeded life throughout the galaxy. They were guardians, protectors. Then something happened, a war maybe, or a catastrophe. This one fled to Earth to heal and sleep, waiting for the life it helped create to evolve, waiting for us. And now we've woken it up during a crisis, Hannah said. Yes, which might be perfect timing, or it might doom us all. With 12 hours left in the countdown, Ambassador Yuna made one final attempt. She offered complete surrender. She offered Earth's entire military to serve the Velkar. She offered every resource, every technology, every cultural treasure humanity possessed. Thalvex listened with obvious boredom. Your surrender is already assumed, Ambassador. The question is not whether you will serve, but how much you will suffer first. I am told your species is very entertaining when afraid. We shall see. The transmission ended. Yuna sat alone in the dark room, her diplomatic robe suddenly feeling like a costume, like a child playing dress-up. She had failed. She had bought them time, yes. 3 days instead of immediate destruction, but it had not been enough. She wondered if anything would be enough. In the Pacific, the water began to boil. Not from heat, but from energy. The ocean surface erupted in massive bubbles as something vast moved below. Seismic sensors around the world registered what they thought was an earthquake. Tsunami's warning systems activated. Commander Nari ordered all her submarines to pull back to a safe distance, though she had no idea what safe meant anymore. Dr. Day stood at the observation window, his hand pressed against the glass. Come on, he whispered. Remember us. Remember that we protected you. Remember why you're here. In the darkness, something enormous opened its eyes. The 72 hours ended at exactly 6:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time, the same moment the Velkar fleet had first been detected. Commander Thalvex broadcast his final message to humanity. Your time is over. You have chosen silence, which we interpret as defiance. Your world will now learn the price of such foolishness. The Velkar fleet broke formation. 50 ships descended toward Earth's atmosphere while the rest positioned themselves around the orbital defense stations. Their strategy was simple and proven across hundreds of conquests. Destroy the military first. Let the civilians watch. Break their spirit before making them serve. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of Aurora 7, his crew at their stations. They were going to die. Everyone knew it. But they were going to die fighting. All weapons fire at will, Jiho ordered. His voice was steady. Aurora 7's railguns opened fire. Tungsten rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Missiles launched with nuclear warheads. Laser batteries focused their beams on the nearest Velkar cruiser. The weapons hit the alien shields and simply stopped. The railgun rounds froze in midair, suspended by energy fields. The missiles detonated harmlessly against barriers that did not even flicker. The lasers scattered like light through water. Lieutenant Sayok watched his tactical display in disbelief. Captain, nothing is getting through. We're not even scratching them. Keep firing, Jiho said. If we're going to die, we die with empty magazines. Around Earth, every defense platform opened fire. Thousands of weapons humanity's entire military might unleashed at once. Railguns, missiles, lasers, plasma cannons, kinetic kill vehicles. Everything humanity had built in 50 years of space exploration. It looked impressive. The night sky lit up like daylight from all the explosions and energy discharges. News cameras around the world captured the desperate battle. It lasted 11 minutes. Then the Velkar returned fire. A single plasma lance hit Aurora 7's shields. The energy barrier that had taken 12 years to develop, that could deflect micrometeorites and small weapons fire, collapsed instantly. The secondary lance punched through the station's hull like paper. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. Someone shouted. Life support failing. Reactor containment compromised. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Jiho watched his crew scramble, trying to save a station that was already dead. They had maybe 5 minutes before the reactor went critical. All hands abandon station, Jiho ordered. This is not a drill.
Get to the escape pods now.
Lieutenant Siak grabbed his arm. Captain, we can still fight. We can redirect the station. Use it as a kinetic weapon. Jiho looked at the young man. Siak's face was pale, but his eyes were determined. Jiho had been wrong about him. He was not just a kid dreaming of the stars. He was a soldier willing to die for Earth. You're right, Jiho said. Evacuate everyone else. You and I will stay on the bridge. We'll aim this station at that flagship and see if we can at least dent their paint. Around Earth, the battle was ending. Defense platforms exploded one by one. Fighter craft disintegrated under point defense fire. Submarine carriers surfaced to launch their payloads, only to be vaporized before their weapons could even lock on. In Geneva, Admiral Hanna watched her tactical display turn red with losses. Every dot that disappeared was a station, a ship, hundreds of lives. In 11 minutes, Earth's orbital defense network had been destroyed. She opened her secure channel to the deep ocean facility. Day, please tell me you have something. It's almost ready, Day replied. His voice was shaking. The awakening sequence is complete. But Hanna, I need you to do something first. I need you to broadcast a signal. Wide spectrum, maximum power. Send it to every Velkar ship. What signal? Surrender. Hanna went very still. What? Not a real surrender? A fake one. I need you to make them think Earth is giving up. I need them to stop shooting for just a few minutes. I need them distracted. Day, what are you planning? Something I probably should have done 3 days ago. Trust me, please. Hanna closed her eyes. She had known Day for 20 years. He was cautious, methodical, careful. If he was asking for this, he had a reason. Send the signal, she ordered her communications officer. The message went out on all frequencies. Admiral Hanna's face appeared on every Velkar screen. She looked tired and defeated. This is Admiral Hanna of Earth Defense Command. On behalf of humanity, we surrender. Cease fire. We surrender unconditionally. In orbit, Thalvex smiled his wrong smile. It had taken 11 minutes. A new record. He was about to order his ships to accept the surrender when sensors started screaming. Commander, massive seismic activity in the Pacific Ocean. Energy readings off the scale. Spatial distortions detected. Probably their dying weapons trying one last desperate attack, Thalvex said dismissively. Ignore it, but his sensor officer's face had gone pale. Commander, the energy signature is biological. And it's massive. Bigger than anything in our database. The ocean surface erupted. Water rose in a column 10 kilometers high. Tsunamis radiated outward in all directions. And from the depths, something began to climb toward the sky. At first, satellites could not get a clear image. The water was too turbulent, the steam too thick. But slowly, as it rose higher, the shape became clear. It was alive. Private Hyun watched from the observation window of the deep ocean facility, his mouth hanging open. The creature was rising past them, its body blocking out all light. He could see patterns on its skin, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. He could see what looked like armor plating, except it was growing from the creature's body, living metal that shifted and changed. Doctor, he whispered, what is that thing? Day stared up at the creature through the observation window, tears running down his face. That is a Leviathan, a guardian from before our time. And I think it remembers us. The creature breached the surface. Water cascaded off its body like waterfalls. It was so large that calling it a creature seemed wrong. It was more like a living mountain rising from the ocean. Its body stretched for kilometers, covered in bioluminescent patterns that painted the sky in colors that hurt to look at. And then it opened its eyes. They were not eyes like any Earth creature. They were windows into something else, something vast and ancient and utterly alien. They glowed with their own internal light, and when they focused on the Velkar fleet above, the temperature dropped 10 degrees worldwide. The electromagnetic pulse came next. Not from a weapon, but from the creature's body itself, a natural discharge as it fully awakened. Every unshielded electronic device within 800 kilometers simply died. Cars stopped. Phones went dark. Satellites tumbled from the sky. But the hardened military equipment survived, and everyone with a working screen watched what happened next. The Leviathan moved, not like a creature swimming, but like reality itself was bending around it. One moment it was breaching the ocean surface, the next it was in low orbit, displacing space like paper folding. Thalvex stopped smiling. All ships engage that thing. Planet Cracker missiles full barrage. Kill it now! 200 Velkar ships broke formation and moved to engage. They launched their most powerful weapons. Missiles that could shatter continents. Plasma lances that could melt through planetary crusts. Singularity bombs that created miniature black holes. The Leviathan did not dodge. The weapons hit it directly, creating explosions that could be seen from the moon. When the light cleared, the Leviathan was still there. Its armor was scorched but intact, and it looked angry. What happened next would be studied by military analysts for generations. The Leviathan did not have weapons in any traditional sense. Instead, it used abilities that seemed to violate the laws of physics. The energy from the Velkar weapons had been absorbed into its body. Now that energy came back out, converted and amplified, beams of pure force lanced from the Leviathan's body, each one precisely targeted. They bypassed the Velkar shields entirely, as if the shields simply did not exist. 30 ships exploded in the first counterattack. Just gone, converted to expanding clouds of debris. On Aurora 7, Captain Jiho and Lieutenant Seok stared at the view screen in shock. The station was dying around them, fire and radiation spreading through the corridors. But they were still alive to see this, Captain. Seok whispered. We're going to win. Maybe, Jiho said. Or maybe we just traded one conqueror for another. The Velkar fleet scattered, trying to establish distance. But the Leviathan moved again, that impossible folding of space. It appeared in the middle of their formation. Its massive body created gravitational distortions, pulling ships toward it. Some tried to escape. Others fired everything they had. None of it mattered. The Leviathan reached out with appendages that seemed to phase between solid matter and pure energy. It grabbed ships and simply crushed them, not with physical force, but with something else. Spatial compression. Reality manipulation, power that made the Velkar weapons look primitive. Commander Nari watched from her submarine, now safely distant from the tsunami zone. What did we unleash? She asked no one in particular. Dr. Day heard her through the communication channel. Not what. Who? That creature has been protecting Earth since before humanity existed. We just reminded it why it was here. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Leviathan took damage. Chunks of its armor were torn away. The Velkar fleet was dying, and they knew it. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being destroyed by something that should not exist. Commander Thalvex watched his tactical display with growing horror as red markers blinked out one by one. Status report, he demanded. 206 ships destroyed. Another 73 heavily damaged. The creature is adapting to every weapon we use. His tactical officer's voice shook. Commander, our shields are useless against it. Our weapons barely slow it down. I recommend immediate retreat. Thalvex's 3 eyes narrowed. He had never retreated. Not once in 30 years of conquest. The Velkar Empire did not run from primitive worlds and their pets. Send for reinforcements. Every ship within 10 light years. And prepare the Nova Protocol. The bridge went silent. The Nova Protocol was forbidden except in the most desperate circumstances. It meant sacrificing 20 ships to create a chain reaction that would destabilize a star. Earth's sun would go supernova, destroying everything in the system, including the creature. Commander, that will destroy us too, the tactical officer said carefully. We would need to retreat beyond the blast radius first. Then we retreat after we activate it. Prepare the protocol. If we cannot have this world, no one will. In space, the Leviathan continued its terrible work. It moved through the Velkar formation like a shark through fish, its massive body creating gravitational waves that pulled ships from their positions. Thalvex watched as it grabbed one of his cruisers with an appendage made of energy and folded space around it. The ship crumpled like paper, compressed into a sphere no bigger than a car. The humans watching from Earth could not look away. Every telescope, every satellite, every camera was pointed at the battle. News anchors struggled to find words. Religious leaders declared it a miracle or an apocalypse depending on their faith. Scientists recorded data they could not explain. Captain Jiho and Lieutenant Seok had managed to evacuate Aurora 7's core reactor before it exploded. They floated in an emergency pod, watching through a tiny window as the battle raged around them. We should be dead, Seok said. The station is gone. We're in a pod with maybe 6 hours of air. But I can't stop smiling. Jiho understood. He felt it too. They were watching humanity's defender destroy an empire that had seemed invincible. Even if they died in this pod, they died knowing Earth would survive. Look, Jiho pointed. It's changing again. The Leviathan's body was shifting. New structures were growing from its surface, formations that looked like organic weapons platforms. The bioluminescent patterns on its skin began pulsing faster, creating a rhythm that resonated through space itself. Dr. Day monitored these changes from the deep ocean facility, which had somehow survived the tsunamis. The sensors showed transformations happening at the cellular level. The creature was rebuilding itself, optimizing for combat. It's incredible, Day muttered, recording every detail. It's using biological technology we don't understand. Those new formations are generating what looks like focused gravity wells, and the pattern on its skin is not random. It's a language. It's communicating with who? Private Hyun asked. Maybe with other Leviathans, or maybe with the Velkar warning them. Day adjusted his instruments. I'm picking up telepathic resonance again. Stronger this time. The emotions are clearer. It's not just angry. It's disappointed. Like a parent finding their children in danger. The Leviathan's new weapons activated. The gravity wells it had formed began pulling in debris from destroyed ships, compressing matter into dense spheres. Then those spheres were launched at incredible speeds. Kinetic weapons that hit with the force of small asteroids. More Velkar ships died. Their shields meant nothing. Their armor was tissue paper. Some tried to flee, but the Leviathan was faster, folding space to appear in their path. Others tried to surrender, broadcasting distress signals in every known language. The Leviathan showed no mercy. Perhaps it could not understand surrender, or perhaps it remembered something from its ancient past. Some old war where mercy had been a mistake. Commander Nari received orders from Admiral Hana. Get as many submarines as you can to evacuation positions along the coasts. When this is over, we will need to rescue survivors from the tsunamis and flooding. Admiral, should we be preparing to fight that thing too? Nari asked carefully. What if it turns on us next? Then we die, Hana said simply. But I don't think it will. Dr. Day believes it recognizes us as the species that protected it while it slept. Let's hope he's right. Ambassador Yuna watched the battle from the underground command center in Geneva. She stood beside Admiral Hana, both women silent as the displays showed the carnage above. We didn't do this, Yuna said quietly. We didn't earn this victory. That creature saved us. Maybe, Hana replied. Or maybe we earned it by taking care of it for 20 years. We could have tried to weaponize it, dissect it, experiment on it. Instead, we protected it. Maybe that counts for something. In orbit, Commander Thalvex made his decision. The Nova Protocol was prepared. 20 ships had moved into position around Earth's sun, ready to initiate the chain reaction that would destroy everything. Activate on my command, Thalvex said. We will retreat during the activation sequence. The creature and this wretched planet will burn together. But the Leviathan sensed the change. Something in the energy patterns of those 20 ships was different. Its ancient mind recognized a threat not just to itself, but to the small blue world it had chosen as its resting place. It moved faster than it had before, folding space in rapid succession. One moment it was in high orbit. The next it was near the sun, its massive body positioned between the 20 ships and the star. The ships fired their weapons, trying to initiate the protocol. But the Leviathan had learned something new. Its body began to absorb the energy meant to destabilize the sun. The living metal on its surface glowed white-hot as it pulled in impossible amounts of power. Dr. Day's instruments went crazy. That's not possible. The energy levels it's absorbing should tear it apart. Nothing biological can contain that much power. But the Leviathan did contain it, and then it released it, not as a weapon, as a wave of pure energy that washed across the solar system. A pulse that did no damage but carried a message. Every being in the system felt it, human and Velkar alike. It was not words. It was pure emotion, pure meaning, transmitted directly into their minds. This world is protected. This world is mine. Leave or die. Lieutenant Sayok gasped in his emergency pod, clutching his head. Did you feel that? Everyone felt that, Jiho whispered. He had felt the Leviathan's presence in his mind, ancient and vast and utterly uncompromising. It had judged the Velkar and found them wanting. On the Velkar flagship, Thalvex stumbled back from his command console. For the first time in his life, he felt true fear. This was not a creature. This was not an animal trained by humans. This was something from the old galaxy, from the time before the Velkar Empire, from the age of myths. Retreat, he ordered. All ships maximum speed. Abandon the system. Commander, we still have over 200 operational ships. I said retreat, Thalvek shouted. His voice broke. Send a message to the Empire. Mark this system as forbidden. Terra is defended by a world eater. No ship is to approach within 10 light years. The surviving Velkar ships broke formation and fled. They scattered in all directions, using every trick they knew to escape. The Leviathan let them go. It did not pursue. It had made its point. As the last Velkar ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, the Leviathan turned toward Earth. It began descending through the atmosphere, its massive body somehow not burning up despite its size. The gravitational effects should have torn the planet apart, but they did not. It controlled its descent perfectly, impossibly. Captain Jiho watched it approach, wondering if they had been saved only to be consumed by their savior. The Leviathan reached the Pacific Ocean and began to submerge. As it descended into the depths, its body started to glow with that same bioluminescence they had seen before. The patterns pulsed in rhythms that seemed almost like words. Dr. Day stood at the observation window, watching it return to its rest. It's going back to sleep, he said in wonder. It saved us and now it's going back to sleep. For how long? Private Hyun asked. I don't know. Maybe another 1,000,000 years. Maybe just until we need it again. Day pressed his hand against the glass. But it will be there, watching, protecting, waiting. The Leviathan settled back into the trench where it had slept for so long. Its eyes closed. Its massive body went still. The bioluminescence faded to a faint glow. Around the world, humans began to emerge from their shelters. They looked at the sky, at the debris from the Velkar ships burning up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. They looked at the ocean where something ancient and powerful had just reminded the galaxy that Earth was not undefended, and they began to cheer. 6 months after the battle, Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of a ship he never imagined would exist. It was not a warship, at least not primarily. It was an explorer, humanity's first vessel capable of traveling between stars. The ship was called the Pioneer, and it was built with technology humanity had learned from studying the Leviathan. Not from cutting into it or experimenting on it, but from analyzing the energy patterns it produced, the way it moved through space, the materials that grew from its body. Lieutenant Seok, now promoted to Commander Seok, stood at the navigation station. Course plotted for Alpha Centauri, Captain. Ready to engage the fold drive when you give the order. Jiho looked around his bridge. Half the crew were veterans from Aurora 7, survivors of the battle. The other half were scientists and explorers, people who had dreamed of this moment their entire lives. They were going to the stars, not as conquerors but as explorers, and they were going with the blessing of the most powerful force in known space. Engage, Jiho ordered. The Pioneer folded space and vanished, traveling in seconds what would have taken decades with conventional engines. Earth's first faster-than-light ship had just made its maiden voyage. Back on Earth in the Underground Command Center in Geneva, Admiral Hanna watched the successful jump on her monitors. She allowed herself a small smile. She was 73 years old now, with gray hair turned completely white from stress. She had retired from active duty, but she still consulted on Earth's defense strategy. The truth was, Earth did not need much defending anymore. Word of the Leviathan had spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Velkar Empire had issued a formal warning marking the Sol system as forbidden territory. Other alien civilizations that might have considered Earth an easy target had revised their assessments. Ambassador Yuna had been very busy since the battle. She was no longer trying to negotiate for humanity's survival. Now she was negotiating treaties, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges. Dozens of alien species wanted to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, not because of humanity's technology or resources, but because they wanted to avoid any conflict with the Leviathan's chosen world. She sat in her office, reviewing the latest proposal from a species called the Taurian Collective. They wanted to establish an embassy on Earth and trade their advanced medical technology for cultural artifacts and art. It was a good deal, better than anything she could have negotiated before the battle. Her assistant knocked on the door. Ambassador, the representatives from the Galactic Council have arrived. Yuna straightened her blue diplomatic robes and walked to the meeting room. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had invited Earth to join as a full member. It was unprecedented. Normally, species had to be spacefaring for at least a century before being considered. But Earth had something no other world possessed: a guardian. The Galactic Council representatives were already seated. There were 5 of them, each from a different species, each more alien than the last. One looked like a floating crystal. Another was a being of pure light. The third resembled a plant that could think. They all rose when Yuna entered. Ambassador Yuna, the crystal being said, its voice translated by sophisticated technology. We have come to formally welcome Terra to the Galactic Council. Your species will have full voting rights and access to our shared databases. In return, we ask for your cooperation in maintaining galactic peace. We accept, Yuna said. Earth is ready to join the galactic community as an equal partner. We must also discuss the Leviathan, the light being said carefully. Our records show that similar entities existed billions of years ago. They were called the first gardeners. They seeded life across the galaxy and then vanished. We believe they were all extinct. The fact that one remains protecting your world is significant. The Leviathan is not a weapon we control, Yuna said firmly. It chooses to protect Earth because we protected it while it healed. That relationship is based on mutual respect, not domination. We understand, the crystal being replied, but you must understand our concern. A fully awakened Leviathan could reshape entire systems. The power it demonstrated against the Velkar fleet was restrained. If it chose to, it could destroy civilizations. Then perhaps civilizations should not give it reason to, Yuna said simply. In the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Day had expanded his research facility significantly. The Deep Ocean Research Center was now the most advanced scientific installation on Earth. They had permission from the United Earth Council to study the Leviathan, but only under strict conditions. No invasive procedures, no attempts to control or weaponize it, only observation and communication. Private Hyun, now Sergeant Hyun, still led the security detail. He had been offered promotions that would take him to the surface to other assignments. He always refused. He had been one of the first humans to see the Leviathan wake up. He felt a connection to it, a duty to protect its rest. Dr. Day stood at the observation window, watching the faint glow in the darkness below. The Leviathan was sleeping again, but not as deeply as before. Sensors showed brain activity, slow but constant. It was dreaming, if such a word could apply to something so alien. Doctor, one of his researchers called out, we are getting another response to the mathematical sequence. Day hurried to the console. For 6 months they had been broadcasting increasingly complex mathematical patterns toward the Leviathan, trying to communicate. Sometimes it responded with emotional resonance. Occasionally it sent back patterns of its own, equations that took teams of scientists weeks to understand. This new response was different. It was an image transmitted directly into their instruments. It showed Earth, but not as it was now. It showed Earth billions of years ago, barren and lifeless. Then the image changed. Seeds falling from space, oceans forming, life beginning, evolution accelerating. It's showing us how it seeded Earth, Day whispered. It's teaching us our own history. More images came. Other worlds, other civilizations. The Leviathans had spread life throughout the galaxy, then retreated to let that life develop on its own. They were gardeners who planted seeds and then stepped back to let the garden grow wild. But something had happened. A war, as they had suspected. Images of darkness spreading across the galaxy. Other Leviathans dying, fighting against something the images could not fully show. This one had fled to Earth, wounded, choosing to sleep in the deep ocean until the war was over. It had slept for millions of years. In that time, the life it had seeded evolved. Dinosaurs rose and fell. Mammals spread across the land. And eventually, humans appeared. Clever, curious, creative humans who discovered the sleeping guardian and chose to protect it rather than exploit it. That's why it saved us, Day realized. Not just because we protected it while it slept, but because we proved we were worthy of the life it had given us. Commander Nari visited the facility once a week, checking on security and reviewing the research. She commanded Earth's expanded submarine fleet, which now patrolled the oceans with new technology derived from Leviathan studies. Human submarines could now fold short distances, making them the fastest naval vessels in history. Any changes in its condition? Nari asked during her latest visit. It's healing, Day replied. The wounds it sustained in the battle against the Velkar are slowly closing. But more than that, I think it's happy. We're keeping it company. It was alone for so long, and now it's not. Do you think it will wake up again? If we need it, yes. But I hope we never do. Around Earth, reconstruction continued. The tsunamis caused by the Leviathan's awakening had damaged coastal cities. The battle debris falling from orbit had caused fires and destruction. But humanity rebuilt stronger than before. They built with new materials, new understanding. Every building incorporated lessons learned from the Leviathan's living metal. Schools taught children about the battle, about the guardian that slept beneath the Pacific. A new generation grew up knowing that humanity was not alone in the universe, that they had a protector, but also that they could not depend on it forever. They had to be worthy of its protection. Captain Jiho's Pioneer returned from its mission to Alpha Centauri 3 months later, having successfully surveyed 2 habitable planets and made first contact with a peaceful species of aquatic beings. The knowledge that the Leviathan protected Earth gave human explorers confidence to venture further, knowing their home was safe. 6 more ships were under construction, each one incorporating technology derived from studying the Leviathan. Not weapons, but exploration vessels. Humanity was reaching for the stars not to conquer, but to learn. Ambassador Yuna stood before the Galactic Council, presenting Earth's proposal for a new interstellar treaty. It was called the Protection Accord, and it outlined rules for how spacefaring species should treat developing civilizations. No conquest, no slavery, no forced submission. Species that violated the accord would face sanctions from the Council, and possibly face something worse. The unspoken threat of the Leviathan ensured that even the most aggressive empires listened. The Velkar Empire sent a formal apology 6 months after the battle, along with reparations for the damage their attack had caused. They requested permission to establish an embassy on Earth, hoping to improve relations with the world they had tried to conquer.